When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
What's up, guys? This is Sean French with another episode of The Determined Society. Today's guest, guys, it is America's happiness coach, Sandee Sgarlata. How you doing, girl?
I'm doing great. So much better now that we're here.
It's super fun to connect face to face, right? The Zoom thing, the technology is just incredible.
Right? I love it. I have made so many great connections, and it's so much better than a phone call because even though we're not technically looking in each other's eyes, we kind of are, but you can still feel each other's energy, and it's just amazing. Like the biggest silver lining from COVID was this, right?
You know what? It's so true, because before, when you're on a business call, it was like, I have 3 kids, right? My kids are still young, and it's just like, dude, be quiet, be quiet. Now it's almost like it's expected. You're going to see the zoo running around in the background, but when I record podcasts, I require everybody to be upstairs and kind of locked up watching a movie or something, because this could be it could distract, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, the thing that COVID really did for a lot of parents and professionals is create the environment for us to enjoy building our careers inside of our own home, and still have these nice touches, right?
Yeah.
Because for a while there was no seeing anybody in person. It was just all Zoom and WebEx. So
well, here's the thing. Corporate America has to get on board with, we're human, we have lives, our professional life and our personal life, they're always going to be intertwined. And so it's okay if the dog barks in the background or your kid comes up. And I think it's so great because it's like, lighten up, America, right? Lighten up. It's okay.
Right. I say that, but I'm like the uptight one, right? Because I have that perfectionist complex where I'm just like, I want everything to be perfect. If there's a dog barking in the background, like the live I did with Craig the other day, my dogs all of a sudden just went crazy in the background, and they were barking for longer than I actually thought they were, because I heard them and then I blocked it out. And then when I listened to the replay or watched the replay, I was like, oh my gosh, how mortifying. It just kept going. But,
well, this is my quasi studio where I record all of my podcast episodes. And it's in the basement. Well, it's in the basement and it's quiet down here. You don't hear if my dog is running above us, you don't hear it. It won't come across the recording.
That's amazing. So we're in Florida. We don't have basements, right?
Right.
So I'm in the downstairs den, and this is my fancy podcast studio. Got my podcast logo up there, and that's about it, right?
That's all you need.
We make it work. Well, I'm super excited to have you on and for you to share your stories or your story with the listeners of the Determined Society podcast. We have a nice little base of listeners that I think are really going to enjoy your story. Briefly we talked about, I think my mom in particular will enjoy your story, but you are America's happiness coach, right? and guys, when I say that, and she's chuckling, but once you hear her story and the things that she's overcame, even at a young age of 12 years old, you will start to understand why, like almost immediately, of why she is termed America's happiness coach. And so talk to us about, I don't want to, tell your whole story, but how did this journey start for you?
Well, I'm going to take it a step back, and I don't talk about this that often because I don't remember it, but it was something that took place that definitely had a very profound impact on the following years of my life. When I was 18 months old, my biological father died. He was electrocuted. He worked for the Virginia Power in Virginia Beach, and his ear hit a hot wire. He fell on more hot wires, and he was basically cremated. So before that tragic death happened, he was very abusive to my mother and my siblings, my 3 siblings.
Wow.
And so I talk about that in my book. So I was a witness to him pulling out a gun and threatening to shoot my mother and shooting bullets into the ceiling, and him beating my brothers and my two brothers and my sister for no reason at all. So in my book, I say, like, I often wonder like how that impacted me, being a witness to that type of violence, because that's pretty bad. So we ended up moving to Baltimore, where my mom ended up marrying the man who raised me since I was 3 years old, my stepfather, but he was my father. He's the only father that I know. He passed away in 2016. So it was in September of 1978, my parents decided to renew their wedding vows and went away for the weekend. And so I was staying with one of my girlfriends. And at that time, we lived on the Severn River, which was outside of Annapolis, Maryland. So we had a river dock, had great summers, great memories on that river. And my friend that I was staying with, we were at her parents' second home that was also on the river. And we got this phone call. And my friend's mom asked me to answer the phone. I answered the phone, and the man said, he wanted to speak to Marilyn. So I handed the phone to her, my friend's mother. And it was like, she said to her son, take Sandee home immediately by boat. And so we didn't know what was going on. I kind of thought that my grandfather had passed away because he was old. And
it's okay not to be perfect with finances. Experian is your big financial friend and here to help. Did you know you can get matched with credit cards on the app? Some cards are labeled no ding decline, which means if you're not approved, they won't hurt your credit scores. Download the Experian app for free today. Applying for no ding decline cards won't hurt your credit scores if you aren't initially approved. Initial approval will result in a hard inquiry, which may impact your credit scores.
Experian. This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
We had been down that road many times. And so I wasn't, not that I wouldn't be upset if my grandfather passed away, but it was like, it's when you have an aging grandparent, it's kind of expected. It's going to happen. It's not if, it's when. And so there was 100 steps that led from the river dock up to my house. And the weird thing, I think it was because I was an athlete, that every time I climbed those 100 steps, it was such a challenge. And it was kind of like, I would hear the Rocky music, in the background, and I'm climbing those 100 steps. And I was just always happy when I was climbing those 100 steps. And that day, me and my girlfriend are climbing the 100 steps, and we're laughing and smiling, and we're greeted by my father at the side door of the house. And he asked my friend to leave. And he told me that my older brother had tragically died while serving in the US Army, and he was in Germany. And my entire life just came crumbling down. My mom, and rightfully so, went into a very, very long depression. It wasn't until my son was born, and I'm holding him for the first 10 minutes, and I had just a smidgen of what that must have been like for her, right? As you know, you have kids.
Yeah.
That love is you can't even describe it unless you have a child. You can't describe the love that you feel. But then there's that same fear that is so tremendous of, what if? And so it wasn't until that moment when my son was born, and I was 34 years old when he was born, and my brother died when I was 12. So all of those years, I couldn't really understand what my mom must have been going through. So I kind of had to raise myself from that point on, but it was definitely a defining moment in my life of, number one, I equated my happiness to something tragic happening. So I would not allow myself to be happy because I felt that if I were to allow myself to be happy, then something horrible was going to happen. And that was a story I made up for a very, very long time. So I never dealt with the grief that one needs to deal with when you have such a big loss in your life. Sorry, I'm losing my sweater here.
You're good.
And so
my audience is interesting.
Right. I keep trying to rotate my clothes for every time I do a.
I've noticed, it's so funny you mentioned that. I'll let you get back to it, but I've noticed I like to wear black.
Yeah.
So I guess that's my brand. I wear black.
There you go. This is blue. I try to wear blue, but I only have so much blue.
Okay.
So anyway, I never dealt with grieving. And instead, it was interesting because on the day of the funeral, we were raised Catholic and you have to walk up to the casket and pay your last respects. And my mother made me go up with her and I didn't want to go. So I go up to the casket to see my brother. And because it had taken 3 weeks for the body to come over, like there was a ton of makeup on his face and he did not look, she goes, he looks like a mannequin. So I made up this story in my mind that he wasn't dead, that he was like in the witness protection program, or he was a spy and he couldn't make contact with us, because that was the only way I could make sense of something that just made absolutely no sense at all.
Man, that shit's deep.
Yeah, right. And so, but here's the weird thing. Ever since that day, once or twice a year, I have a dream about him where I open up the front door and he's standing there and we hug. And it's just, I just wake up with a smile on my face. It's just the most bizarre thing. And someone once, maybe I was a psychic, it was somebody very spiritual, had said, well, that's, sometimes our loved ones that have passed on, they visit you in your dreams. And I'm like, okay, makes good sense to me. He visits me in my dreams. We say hello, we hug, and all that. So yeah, that was a big, profound moment in my life. What ended up happening for me, because I didn't deal with the grief and the pain and the loss, is that I ended up abusing drugs in my early 20s. I was out partying with some friends that I worked with. Somebody pulled out some cocaine. This was in the late 80s. And not that it's an excuse, but that's kind of what people did in the late 80s. It was very...
You hear the sad story all the time. A father or mother passes away and didn't have life insurance, and the family is left to deal with the debt and struggle without any financial help. That's where term life insurance comes in. It can help protect the family financially from those struggles if something unexpected were to happen to you or your spouse. Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance you can get done today for busy parents like you, all online, on your schedule, right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes with no health exam required. If you got kids, and especially if you're young and healthy, the time to lock in low rates is now. Even if you have life insurance through your employer, it may not offer enough protection for your family, and it may not follow you if you leave your job. There's no risk. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can cancel at any time. Join thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help their family. Apply in just minutes at meetfabric.com/TDS. meetfabric.com/TDS. MEET fabric.com/TDS. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company. Not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions.
Very known. And I had, because my brother had so many drugs in his system when he passed away, I refused to do drugs. I was like, I'm not going to do drugs. So I had a weak moment. I started using it. Cocaine is very powerful. 4 years went by. I ended up hitting rock bottom. Thank God I hit rock bottom and didn't do too much damage, right?
Yeah.
And although I did used to lay in bed almost every day, because I was using it every single day, major amounts of cocaine every single day. And it would be 4 a.m, 5 a.m, and I'd be laying there in bed with my heart just beating away. And because I was raised Catholic, I would ask for forgiveness of my sins, because that was what you were supposed to do when you go to bed, because I didn't think I was going to wake up, and I didn't want to wake up. That's how low I was at my point. I didn't want to wake up. Now, I would never commit suicide. I could never do that and put my mother through losing another child.
Sure.
But I just hoped it had happened. And I would, I'd fall asleep, I'd wake up, I'm like, okay, here we go again, another day, I got to deal with this. So I ended up going through an outpatient recovery program, joined a 12-step group, and, got my life back together. And that was in January of 1990. So it was 32 years ago. And that was what put me on this path to always try to get back to a place of that peace and happiness that I felt while I was climbing the 100 steps that day in September 30th, 1978. And it's been a long road, and it's been a lot of work. I had a lot of therapy. I learned that I have PTSD, and it's manageable. It's not consuming in any way, shape, or form. For me, it's like when my son gets in the car and is driving back to college. He's 21. He's a junior in college. Like, it'll start, oh my God, and I just start praying and praying and praying, and it's really hard. But I've just learned when it shows up like that, I have a lot of tools that I can, bring the anxiety down, and because life is short. And so my book is all about everything that I do every single day that I've done for 30 years of how to get back to a place of peace and happiness, no matter what curveballs are thrown in your life. And now, obviously, some situations are going to be harder than others. And but life's too short not to deal with it.
I'm just staring because I'm just
like,
so,
I'm just like
no, like no, most respectfully, just like, I'm just transfixed on your strength, because all these things that you went through in life, whether it was, the death of your brother, 18 months old, witnessing that stuff and not even understanding the impact it's having on you subconsciously. Then in September of 1978, right, you're going up the 100 steps of happiness that you do every single day. And as soon as you got to the 100th step, that shattered. That definition of that stairway is different now, right? And then going into your young adulthood to the cocaine use, all that kind of stuff, like, all of that led to this beautiful moment and this beautiful person that you are right now. So, like, for me, I feel led to ask you, and we'll get to a bunch of other stuff, but talk to the people out there that may be feeling in a certain way, like the walls are closing and their whole world is completely shattered. What strategies can you give them immediately, just by them listening to this podcast, that they can just turn into at any point in time to give themselves some type of relief?
Everything in life, you have a choice, and it's your perspective. So while there are days when I think, why did I have to go through that at such a young age? Or, you think, why me? There's always somebody else that has it worse off than you. Always, no matter what it is. So you recognize that you have a choice in how you're going to perceive the situation. And then focus on everything that you have to be grateful for, because there's always something you have to be grateful for, even if it's just your heart that pumps blood through your veins a bazillion times a day. There's
That's
always
a miracle on its own,
right? Completely.
So
on my podcast, I interviewed this beautiful young woman, Allie Ingersoll. She's called the Quirky Quad. In her early 30s, she was a shallow diver, and she would do it in the Bahamas. It's shallow diving. Apparently that's a thing. And she was doing her dives, and she hit, her head hit the wrong way or whatever. And long story short, she is a quadriplegic, and she needs care 24 hours a day. Like, she can't do anything without assistance. And so I said to her, you must have moments where you're like, why me? And she's like, of course I do. And I was like, well, what do you do when you're feeling at your lowest moment in your life? And she says, I talk to other quadriplegics who have it worse off than me.
Powerful.
What else can you say? Right.
And it's like, I'm listening to your story, and I have my own story, right? Everybody has a story. Everybody's story has great beginnings, sad middle, and hopefully happier endings. But we all go through this life, and we have a choice every day, like you said, to succumb to the victim or be the victor, right?
Mhm.
And it can sound kind of cold, right? Like, hey, do you want
Yeah.
to be you're gonna act like a victim, or are you gonna rise above and you're gonna win, right? But I think there's a way to truly feel empowered in that moment of decision, right? Because I can look back at my own life, and I'm sure you've looked back at yours and all the things that have happened, and you start thinking about all those unfortunate events and tragic events. And if you take away the rising above and being the victor of it, and you slide into that why me and poor me, that feeling is crippling.
Mhm.
And we have no control over that feeling when we get into that point, right? Because we have gone down that rabbit hole of why me, poor me. Oh my God, this happened, that happened. He broke up with me, she broke up with me, whatever it may be. When the reality is, if we can challenge ourselves, no matter how bad things are in our lives, current and past, and say, who am I to judge what has happened in my life? What has happened in my life in the past is the past. And it has given me an opportunity to impact other people in a positive way.
Yeah.
Your story has probably impacted thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
I hope so. I hope
And that's
so.
powerful. I'm sure it has.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
mean, it's
mean,
powerful.
there's some, that's just part of my story.
Yeah,
There's
I mean,
other
you have
parts of
some
it that
guys, she has some amazing fun things too. We'll get
right.
to, but
But
this
like,
is not all Sandee.
no.
Just a
I
part of
mean,
her.
here's the thing, you know, I get sober, my then husband, we start trying to start a family. I ended up having 4 miscarriages
Oof.
and 1 baby. I never even touch on that. And like, somebody was telling me, they were like, you
That's
probably
lost
should talk
too.
about that a little bit more, because so many women are going through that issue.
Yeah.
And that was the part of my life when I learned how to trust, when I truly learned how to trust, because it is so, when you get pregnant and when you have a child, the only thing you can do is trust. You can, there's so many things out of your control. You can't, especially when you're pregnant. I mean,
Yeah.
all I could do is eat healthy, but I had no control over it. And for some reason, I was not meant to have 5 children. I was meant to have 1. And so, and little things like that make you even stronger. Fortunately, I haven't gone through the devastating thing, of losing my brother, because that was by far the most devastating thing I've gone through. I've had other things that have happened in my life, not necessarily to me, but that have affected me. And that my ex-husband, I got a call one afternoon, and it was in October of 2003. And he was driving drunk and hit a motorcycle and killed 2 people. And I had to watch my then 13-year-old little boy on his hands and knees hitting the ground, knowing that his father was going to be, of what his father had just done. His father, essentially, it was involuntary, but his father killed 2 people. And he was sent to prison for 7 years. And I was then, all of a sudden, I'm a single mother.
Right.
With this little boy. And here's the weird thing. My brother died 2 weeks before my 13th birthday. And my son's father had the accident about 3 weeks after his 13th birthday.
Man, there's some strong parallels there.
Very much.
Had you not gone through what you went through, how would
Yeah.
you have been able to help your son through
Yeah.
this? And
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's the most beautiful part of life. And we don't know these things when they're happening in the present time. But like years later, I mean, how many years later was that?
Well, he was in prison for 7 years. He just got out of prison. Today's the 17th, December 14th. It's just been a little over a month that his father got out of prison. And my son is now 21 years old. And so in my book, my son wrote his college essay about how he experienced that tragedy. and I published it in the book because I felt like it's not my story to tell. But if I can I read the last paragraph? Because
oh my
it's
gosh,
so profound.
please.
My son
Please.
wrote this when he was 16 years old. So in the
How old
essay,
was he
like
when
he
he wrote
talks
this?
about, he was 16 when he wrote this. It was his college essay. So the last paragraph says, my mother always says, everything happens for a reason. And I truly believe this because without the accident, I would have been spoon-fed my whole life. Because of the accident, I am independent and I make smarter choices. Most importantly, I learned that life happens in moments and that you cannot let one moment ruin the rest.
I have goosebumps everywhere. One of my favorite things that I always say is are you having a bad day or are you having a bad moment?
Yeah.
And your son at 16 had the opportunity to truly learn those lessons. Now, granted, tragic experience.
Yeah.
But your
I mean,
son at 16?
He wrote that at 16. He wrote that at 16. I mean, the accident happened when he was just before, right after he turned 13. And I think the first couple of years were probably worse than I knew because I don't think he would have ever told me how bad he was feeling inside.
Yeah.
When I read that, he talks about how he's been depressed. And I'm like, you were depressed? I didn't even know.
I didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, I just, my best friend was like, Sandee, everything you've done leading up to this point has led you to this one moment of now, here you are. This is the most important challenge of my life, was to raise this young and healthy boy, he was a little boy when his dad went to prison and now he's a man,
It's just God just prepared you for all the loss, all, the 3 or 4 miscarriages you had, the accident, like everything that has taken place. This is just my perspective, right? I'm looking at everything that's happened to you. It was for your son.
I think it was for my son. I think that was because I didn't have somebody when I was his age going through that,
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody. Now, the really good thing is that he's got such a fantastic, amazing support group. His friends were great. His friends' parents, so many of my girlfriends just put him under his wing and are now like his second mom. I mean, when they say it takes a village, it really took a village. And the people in my neighborhood, in my community that were there and showed up for my son. And it was just amazing how something so tragic, and there was a lot of a stigma, right? There was a lot of stigma. I mean, there were people when it was in the local news. I mean, people were like, he should be hung. He should get the death sentence. I mean, that's how mean people are. He should get the death sentence. I mean, the meanness that people show up on their little soapbox, because I'm sure most of them have never gotten into a car after having a glass of wine or a beer.
Never.
Right? Right.
Never.
Something that can happen to anybody who leaves a bar. It's horrible. So don't drink and drive. Call Uber.
Yeah.
Not worth it.
It's funny. Like I don't drink much anymore. Anyway, it's a once every 6 months type deal. Anyway, just because I don't like how I feel. My body doesn't metabolize it anymore. But I mean, listen, there were plenty of times, in college. And
everybody has.
Was completely freaking stupid. And
right.
You know what? Praise God, I didn't impact anybody's life.
Exactly.
It's funny because, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just said exactly.
You mentioned something earlier. Like, I just want to go back to it. The moment you were holding your son, for the first time, you realized that you felt a fraction of what your mom had felt. And you also realized that you have no control over anything. As a parent, like that's the one thing that scares the absolute shit out of me every day. As soon as my kids go out that door and I take them to school, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
It's like I'm this professional worrier now.
It's so hard to let it go and just trust. My higher power is God, whatever you choose to call it. Yep. I trust God's will. And that's all we have, is to just trust that things are going to work out exactly how it's supposed to.
Amen.
Because we can't control it. When I was 16, one of my classmates, and this was the moment that I really realized, and this is just my belief, I'm not pushing it on anybody. This is just what I believe. Everybody is that you're free to, and you have the choice to believe whatever you believe. I believe that everything happens for a reason. And when it's our time to go, it's our time to go.
Sure.
And so one of my classmates, we were 16, he was walking his bike up the driveway. A thunderstorm had just passed. He was hit in the back of the head by lightning and was instantly killed. And when that happened, I'm like, there's nothing you can do. It was unavoidable. It wasn't like he was being careless and was on a golf course, right?
Yeah.
During a thunderstorm. I mean, he literally was just
coming home.
So I just really believe that, we don't know when our time is up. We really don't. And that's why life is so short, and you have a choice every single day, and you can choose happiness. It is a choice. Happiness is a choice.
Say it again, Sandee. Say it
Happiness
again.
is a choice. I mean, it's a choice.
No, it is your sense choice. Of being.
It really, I mean, the whole why me, I'm sorry, like when you have something bad happen, and I want to, because I haven't had a chance to say this yet, and I do want to emphasize this. When you're having a bad day, when something bad happens, by all means, sit in your pain and feel your pain. You have to feel it. Okay. What I'm talking about here isn't just like smile and everything's going to be okay, because I did that and it didn't work. No. All it did was get me into outpatient rehab. Okay? So you have to feel the feelings and sit in it. It's real. What you're feeling is absolutely real, and it hurts, and it's real, and it hurts, and you have to feel the pain. However, you don't want to sit in there for too long. You've got to feel the pain, go through it, feel it deep, make friends with your pain. Okay. Kind of like fear. Fear is kind of one of those things. You're always going to have it. Put your arm around it, make friends with it. It's always going to be there. The pain of my brother dying is always going to be there. I've made friends with it. It's always going to be there. That pain is never going to go away. It's always going to be
powerful. There. It's so powerful, because just like you said, we have to feel those moments of pain.
You have to.
But I also think, just like you said, it's very important to make an agreement with yourself of how long you're going to sit in that pain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It could, and it could depend on how big the pain is. If it's when your kids upset you, that's something that you should be able to get through in 5 minutes, right? But if it's a big life tragedy, like, give yourself some time.
Absolutely.
It's not about being a robot, ladies and gentlemen. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what she's talking about. This is about understanding your true feelings, holding yourself accountable to those feelings, and dealing with them in a mature way. And once you do that, then you can be happy, right? Because it just doesn't make sense to sit in it too long. But then also, at the same token, it doesn't make sense to like, oh, I'm sad, but I'm gonna act like everything's okay.
Right. You don't want to do that. But here's the thing. I mean, there are people that they enjoy sitting in their uncomfortableness because it's comfortable.
But it's a self-fulfilling prophecy too, right? That's a whole other subject.
Whole other subject.
Yeah, but like, if you sit there and you're like, someone tells you you're fat and ugly all the time. You're fat and you're ugly. You're fat and you're ugly. You're fat and ugly. Like my dad did to me, right? And as I grow up, every time I get in better shape, I start to, I need a cheat day. Yeah, boy, let's get a cheat day, or a cheat meal. Then it's a cheat day. Then it's a cheat week, and then it's a cheat week. And I'm fat. Well, hi, self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what that is. But I want to shift gears.
Okay, let's shift.
I'm excited. I can't wait to read the book. But I want to shift gears into something that maybe a lot of people might not know about you. And that is, you are a former U.S. national and international figure skating coach.
Yes, I am.
That is so badass. Tell us about that.
So, here's the thing. I became a US national and international figure skating coach against all odds. All right. Because as a competitive figure skater, I did not have any big titles under my belt. So when I started coaching, when I first started coaching, it was fine. But then once it was a brand new rink that had just opened up, and I was one of the first coaches on staff. After we were there for a little bit, we started getting some Russian coaches that come in and they look at you and they're like, well, what have you done? I'm like,
Yeah.
Nothing, nothing. Well, I competed at the world level and I was in internet, I competed in I had none of that. I never made it out of a region. Never. I literally just started coaching skating because I love it. It was my passion. I had no chance. We didn't have the money to it's so expensive. We didn't have the money to finance it for me to go anywhere with skating. And when I was my junior year of high school, we moved to a part of Western Pennsylvania where there wasn't an ice rink. The closest ice rink was 45 minutes away. So I had to stop competing, pretty early on.
Right.
So I started coaching. I'm like, I'm just going to teach group lessons. It'll be fun, teach little kids, march on the ice, whatever. And then February of, 1994, Tanya Harding tries to take out Nancy Kerrigan.
Everybody remembers that.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, as horrible as that was, I don't think we've ever seen anything since then in athletics. That was like a one-time deal. I don't think anybody's ever tried to take another athlete out in competition.
Well, but Tyson bit Evander Holyfield.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, I had 50 little girls wanting to be a competitive figure skater. So I instantly had all of these skaters that wanted to compete.
Interesting.
And so I started coaching and I ended up with this one student, Rusty Fine. He extremely naturally talented. He was in rental skates and was doing an axel in rental skates, which is nearly impossible to do. He taught himself how to do it. His mother didn't want to buy him ice skates. So I had an old pair of skates that fit him. I painted them black and those were his first pair of skates. I ended up that was when he was 12 years old. I took him to US Nationals and then watched him get his gold medal in his first international competition. And it was really amazing. I took one other skater to an international competition in Taiwan, which was really cool because she was Chinese American and the Taiwanese government wanted her to compete for Taiwan. After we got there, we learned that she would have to give up her she was Chinese American, like she had dual citizenship. She would have to give up her US citizenship, but she was born here. She was like, I'm not giving up my US citizenship. But it was really interesting because we were treated like celebrities. They would be, it was hysterical. We would come out of the ice rink and there would be mobs of people standing there wanting my autograph. And they didn't speak English and I'm signing autographs. And we were like laughing. We're like, you realize we are nobody in the United States. Like nobody knows who we are.
That's so funny. I remember.
But it was hysterical.
Playing college baseball at LSU. They don't have a professional baseball team, right? It's LSU's the big baseball, show in town. And we come out before a game out of the locker room, people are waiting along the right field foul line for us to sign their autographs. And after the game, you come out of the locker room and everybody's waiting. And it's just like, dude, you guys, we're just these kids, man. We're stupid kids and we're trying to get home and shower so we can go out to the bar. Like this is.
But those are good memories, right? Isn't that great memories? It had to make you feel really good.
Yeah, no, sure. It did. I was blessed, because I didn't get to go play minor league or major league baseball. So that was my time to feel, kind of like, hey, this is what it feels like. I love that story because so many things in this world can be done with just passion alone and love for something. You don't have to have these big titles and these big championships and all the hardware and all the look at me's in order for you to impact the youth. So I really appreciate that story more than you may think, because most people would listen to that voice in their head. Who are you? What have you done? Who are you? What have you done? And I think on the most part, we hear those voices on a daily basis. I do.
Of course we do.
I hear that voice and I say, all right, bro, I hear you. I feel you, but you're sitting over there. Right? Because I'm in control, right? And that's just the thing. Like, and it's funny, like we can segue into, because you're a coach now too. You're still a coach and you coach, you're America's happiness coach. So at what point when you were coaching figure skating, did you think like just coaching for you in some capacity was just your purpose?
So I've always been a coach. I mean, I was a little bit of a hustler when I was a teenager. I had to babysit my little brother Friday and Saturday night. So I would coach one of the girls down the street for me, the little girls. I would coach her for free in exchange for her to babysit my little brother. Because I was like, I got $10 a week allowance. So I give her $5 and teach her skating in order to babysit. And then the other $5 was for beer and cigarettes,
Damn, this stuff was cheap back then,
it was
huh?
very cheap, right?
Damn.
So I've always coached. The biggest part of being a coach, and I think the reason why I had such an impact on a lot of my students is because of the mindset training that I would do. And I've actually just started coaching elite athletes as well.
Oh, wow.
I'm being pulled back into figure skating, and I'm working with some skaters with their mindset training. So when I decided to fully walk away from the sport, it is pretty toxic. I don't know how it is today. So I don't know how it is today because I have been away from coaching skating since 2003. But even then, since really 2000, 2001, 2002, it was just a little bit here and there. By 2003, my son was going on 3 years old, and I just walked away completely because I just didn't want to give up 1 minute with him, because he really was my miracle child. I was told I would never have children, so he was my. So that was when I in 2003 was when I started taking the courses to get certified as a life coach, and I just started doing workshops, and I didn't even know that I was teaching the law of attraction. I had no idea. When The Secret, do you remember The Secret? Of course, who doesn't, right?
Yes.
The Secret came out. I don't remember what year that came out, but I was like, oh, law of attraction. There's something called the law of attraction.
That was like 03-ish. Oh, it was like 03, no, it was, maybe 05.
Yeah, because I had already been doing these workshops for a few years, and then I learned about this, and I was like, I've been teaching this, and I didn't even know there was such a thing as a law of attraction. It was just something that made sense to me, and it was how I lived my life. So that's really what led me into coaching. It's just, and I had even been doing it with some of the 12-step programs. I was working with other people, and helping them. And it's just something that is so natural for me because I have a story. We all have a story, but I have spent, 30 years on this quest. I am a total self-help junkie to the extreme. And not only did I do years and years of therapy, I've read, I don't even know how many books. I don't want to say 1,000, but it's probably hundreds of books for sure. I've been to countless live workshops and seminars. I've had my own coaches. I always have a coach. As a coach, you should always have a coach because
I have two.
Right. I've got multiple too as well.
Yeah. I have a physical transformation coach.
Yeah.
Which is my buddy Steven Campolo, and then of course Craig.
Craig, I've got Jen and Chris Gottlieb.
Oh, Jen is great.
Jen and Chris Gottlieb. I have a PR person that I work with. I used to have more. I've downsized it to just those three.
You got to condense it.
I picked the best. I picked the best out there, and for right now, those three are the best. But you always have to be learning and growing, and it's just something that it is my passion in life. Is just to help other people. I just want to help other people because life is too short.
And that's what you do. And so with that, we can land the plane on tell these amazing people how they can work with you. And I'll put like all your handles and your website in the description of the podcast. But for the ones that are listening, just tell them how they can work with you, how they can get in contact with you, all that good
Yeah.
stuff.
So my email is Sandee@sandeesgarlata.com, and Sandee is with 2 E's. My website is sandeesgarlata.com. On Facebook and Instagram is Coach Sandee Sgarlata. And on my website, I have a subscription-based program where it's just a monthly fee. And there's different levels that you can opt into depending on the type of support that you want. And you can find all that on my website. My book can be found on Amazon or Barnes & Noble in both hardcover, softcover, Kindle, and audio version. This amazing voiceover artist read the book for me, and I cried when I heard her audition. That's how powerful her voice was. And then happinesssolved.com. You can find all of my podcast episodes on that website. However, you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. And I also have a Happiness Solved YouTube channel.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Oh, just real quick, spell your name for them.
So Sandee is Sandee, and Sgarlata is S like Sam, G like George, Arlata. And I was called Sandra D in high school because of Grease.
Yeah.
And everybody said I look like Olivia Newton-John from Grease.
Oh my God.
So since my legal name is Sandra, I could spell Sandee any way that I wanted. So that's where the 2 E's came from.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Well, I am sure people are going to be reaching out to you left and right, and I will definitely be sending people your way because I think that your message is amazing. Your energy is incredible, and your love for people and helping them improve their lives is paramount and second to none.
Sean, thank you so much.
I love it, and I cannot wait to be on your podcast.
I was just
coming up.
I can't wait to. Yes, I've taken.
That's like next week, right? Or like week after or something?
It's in February because I'm not interviewing anybody until mid-February. Cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I took this time off. We're moving and downsizing and all that stuff. So
cool.
So I'll be talking to you.
It'll be a new podcast studio that I'm seeing you.
It'll be a new studio. It'll be a new one.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much. I just loved sitting here with you. And in fact, after we're done recording, hang tight real quick.
Will.
And I wanted to debrief with you, but again, love you to death. And that was just so much fun. Thank you so much for being on today's show. You're amazing.
Thank you.
All right.